Hey seniors, welcome back. Today we're going to start talking about geometry. We're going to take a break from all the algebra and just focus on geometry. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about similar and congruent figures. So go ahead and write our title at the top of your notes page. And then don't worry about all of this yet. I'm going to tell you exactly what to write. All right, so let's talk about what similar figures are. Similar figures are different sizes of the same shape with identical angle measurements and proportional size. What that means is that it's the exact same shape, just maybe different sizes. So let's say I had this triangle here. In order for these to be similar, the proportions must be the same, but the size can be different. And just to remind us what proportional means, it means ratio between corresponding pieces that are equal. And we'll talk about that in a second. You don't have to write the proportional bit down, but do write down the definition for similar. And then, of course, a ratio is a comparison of two parts. You don't have to write those two things down. Those were just for a reminder. All right, so similar figures, two figures that are proportional but maybe different sizes. All right, and then we're going to talk about congruent figures. Congruent figures are completely identical figures. They have to have the exact same shape, the exact same side lengths, and the exact same proportions. The way I know if something is congruent is if I can literally put one shape on top of it, on top of each other, and it would look exactly the same. It would look like it was one shape instead of two. So make sure that you have down our definition for congruent and similar, and let's move into some examples. All right, just roughly draw these triangles in your notebook. Our question here, are these figures similar? And this actually the 4 should be there, and the 8 should be there. Make sure that your notes page looks exactly like mine does. The way I figure out if these figures are similar is to just set up ratios. Set up ratios for corresponding sides and see if you can reduce them to their smallest form and if they are the same. So let me just show you what I mean. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a ratio for the left side of both of these triangles. So I have 4:8. Make sure that that is in your notes page. And then I'm going to set up a ratio for the bottom of these triangles. 3:6. Now all I'm going to do is try to get these in their absolute smallest form. So I see that, and the way that I do that is obviously division. If I divide both of these sides by 4, my ratio for my left side of the triangle becomes 1 and 2. And then if I divide the other side by 3, get that in its smallest form, our ratio is 1 and 2. And since these ratios are the same, these triangles are in fact similar. Let's do another example. All right, just have these roughly drawn on your notes page. Again, are these figures similar? All I'm going to do is I'm going to set up ratios for my corresponding sides to see if it works. So for our left side of these figures, we'll do 5:5. Don't forget your units. I lacked on that on the last one, but don't forget it. And then 2:1. Now, if I divide both of these sides by 5 to get in its smallest form, I'm going to come out with 1 to 1 centimeters for both sides. And then for my other side, for this ratio, if I just divide by 1 or by 2, I'm still going to come out with a ratio that's different. If I divide by 1, I'm going to be left with 2:1. If I were to divide by 2, I would come out with 1:1/2. And since neither one of these ratios match our other ratio, these figures are not similar. Not similar. So again, you're looking for ratios that can come out to be the same thing. All right, guys, let's talk about congruent figures. Now, all I'm doing is I'm looking at these different sets of shapes, and I'm trying to figure out if they're congruent or not. Congruent means they have to be absolutely identical. I should be able to lay these figures on top of each other, and it should look like one shape. So let's deal just with our triangles. These shapes, just from looking at it, are congruent because their size is the same, and they both have these right angles here. and any right triangle is going to be the same. So these figures are congruent. Let's move to our next set. These figures, just by looking at them, I can tell that they are not congruent because if I were to lay them on top of each other, they would look totally, they would not look like they were one shape. And the way that I know that is this figure is a hexagon and has 6 sides, while this figure has 8 sides and is an octagon, which means that they are not the same shape, so these figures are not congruent. Now, our cool little rectangles here, these are going to be congruent, and I can just look at them and see that I could lay them on top of each other and that they would be the same shape. So 2 vocabulary words we should have learned today, congruent and similar. That's going to be it for me. Let's go ahead and move into guided practice.